Welcome to another great episode of Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Myself, Captain Travis Yaeckel in the studio, Big Country, Captain Ric Liles, and our special guest, Captain James Beers.
How's it going?
Tampa Fishing Outfitters. Some of you guys may recognize him from the counter, but he also is a fishing charter captain here on Tampa Bay, so we're going to pick his brain a little bit today and find out what you've been up to, brother.
Sounds good, man.
So, but you got us here, guys. We're going to talk a lot of fishing tonight. We're also going to open it up and let you guys ask some questions.
We want to hear about your Christmas presents, if they
Christmas
have to do
presents.
with fishing.
Yeah.
See what you got for Christmas. What your plans are for the new year, maybe. Anybody got any special trips? I know some people travel, so that was one thing me and the wife had always talked about, was doing like a New Year's fishing trip, like go somewhere for the new year.
Yep.
But anyway, so the South Shore, we're going to break into that and talk a little bit about it. I want to talk a little bit about the bait situation.
Cool.
You had a story that happened to you the other day, and
yeah.
it's sort of it happens this time of year where one day everything's good and the next day it's just a totally different scenario out there. And we've had some days like that, especially with bait across Tampa Bay in general. The Skyway Bridge has been pretty solid. There's bait on the bridge. But if you're getting bait in other places, it's only a matter of time, and it'll probably either not be there the day you need it, or maybe not the right size.
Yeah.
I was getting it on the markers for a couple weeks, and then that sort of flaked out, so I started going back to the bridge and started hitting some markers again the last couple of days. And my first cast was like stud, like perfect size greenbacks,
yep.
And my next cast was straight Spanish sardines.
Spanish sardine, yeah.
And so I
come
got,
in groves.
oh my gosh, man.
I said the most
yeah.
frustrated I ever saw Travis,
dude,
was with Spanish
let me
sardines.
tell you what, man.
Was that a nice Christmas tree?
Dude,
every hole.
it was a meat wall.
I bet you 90% of the holes had a Spanish sardine.
There's still a picture of it floating around. Actually, and it happened to me twice. I mean, to the point where you literally can't pull your net in. When you're pulling the net over the rail, it's just ripping.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can hear it.
Yeah, and so and it's deceiving, because if you look at Spanish sardines in the water, you'll think, oh, those are good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good solid 3/8 bait, nice, and they're longer. The problem is they're thin.
Mm-hmm.
They're little shallow fellers, so they just get stuck. So be careful with the Spanish sardines. There's been some of the markers that have had them out there, but other than that, 1/4-inch net will get them. And they're actually good. I've been doing a lot of trout fishing here.
Yeah.
And the Spanish sardines are good chum, or any of those smaller greenbacks that you can get.
Yep.
They're good for chum. I do like a little bit bigger bait to fish with, but it kind of makes it tough. Now these guys over here.
Yeah, down our way, the trout bite's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had
some fatties too. I mean,
cool.
some good fish.
Yeah. And the key to that, like I said, I think, is getting some good bait. I know there's some guys that are fishing with shrimp. I'll see them fishing around me, and it's just right now it's not as productive.
Right.
If you can, if white bait is still accessible for you to get to, it's definitely the bait of choice. But soon shrimp will start to come into play. I think it'd be a little more productive.
Yeah.
But anyway, so bait situation. I know Captain James fishes a lot of the north upper Tampa Bay out of Gandy area. So give us a report.
Up there. Let's
All
see
right.
if we're going to be traveling north this week.
Well, it's worth it. The fishing's good up there. The the bait situation, it's what I'm learning is it's just on the move. I've noticed that it's it can be one place one day, and then like you said, the next day it's very different. I mean, we can go from it's in 2 feet of water on every flat in sight to the very next day you can't find anywhere. You're checking bridges, you're checking markers, but it is still up there. It's just not in the numbers it was a month ago.
Right.
I was out running a trip yesterday and checked my most reliable bait spot and it was gone. And there's only 45 minutes of scramble until you link up with the clients. So but was able to find it. Just went to some structure, some deeper water, checked there, marked it like crazy, couple throws, done. Now I'm the opposite of you. I've been enjoying smaller bait lately up where I'm fishing, which is I really focus north of the Howard Franklin. So all the flats on both sides of the bay up there. Trout bite's been excellent. Redfish has been very consistent, and the snook bite is what it is. I mean, it's not in season, but people still enjoy catching them, and that's probably been the most consistent I've seen it.
Well, I'm with you on the bait. I've been getting the small bait. I haven't been going to the Skyway.
Yeah.
I've been finding something a little closer to home, a little bit smaller.
Right.
You get a few in the mix that you can free line out there, but pretty
you get your
much
chunky baits
I'm
mixed
having to do mostly cork fishing. But I like small baits this time of year.
Yeah.
It's just me.
I'm finding the same results. In fact, I was joking with some guys here at the shop probably 2 weeks ago. I was forced to fish with the smallest bait I've ever fished with in my life. And I could tell you that before being a guide, I would have said, forget it. I'm either going home or give me a Miradine or whatever it is you're going to give me. But, knowing that, I don't really know what angler I'm going to have on the boat, I wanted to have it available. So I grabbed it, brought it, went to my first spot where I'd been doing really well on redfish, and I had almost no confidence that they were going to eat these baits. But I said, hey, we'll try it, and if not, we'll throw some artificials in there. And, I mean, I filled up the chum bat with all these tiny baits. And, I mean, you got 100 in there. You throw it out there, and, I mean, these redfish went berserk on it. I've never it's been a long time since I've had such a good bite.
Right.
And it was on the smallest bait I've ever taken up there. So, it changed my mind about it now. I say just take whatever I can get. When I'm up there, they'll eat it. That's what they're eating anyways. The match of the hatch is the old cliche that everyone kind of throws out there, but
sometimes
it's very true.
A lot to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, the transition's happening. We're getting these minor fronts that come through. I'm actually finding fish in both states, kind of their wintertime haunts, and then also where I've been catching them for the last 3 or 4 months. So I would say if you've got your places you like to fish that you catch fish in September, October, check those. Right. And if you've also got and they're not home, go to your wintertime spots, hit the creeks, hit the docks, muddy areas, oyster bars, because I'm finding them in both places. It's like half the population's there, and
that's good advice right now.
Yeah, a lot of. I mean, and I've been on the water quite a lot here recently, and watched the water temperature change. Swing from. I fished a day 2 weeks ago that was 57-degree water, and this morning it was like 73 degrees. And that's a big jump. And a lot of that's attributed to the shallow water areas that we fish. That temperature can change dramatically overnight or during the day. And some of these times when we're seeing these fish get into areas like shallow oyster bars or rock bottom creeks and stuff like that, you're not going to find them there on those colder days. A lot of times they're sitting down in the bellies or in the mud bottom. And so to know kind of the area of where you're at, and with this clear water, I tell people, I mean, I saw 3 boats over the last week in the river on the sandbars. I mean, there's people everywhere stuck. But just take your time, get on your trolling motor and troll them out. A lot of times these little veins, these little creeks, these little swashes are holding fish, especially just off the main parts of the river. But you can't motor in there to them. Right. So take your time. Even just trolling motor down the river just to see what's down there is a good thing to do this time of year. And I say that because there's a lot of folks running around right now, and they're hitting oyster bars, they're hitting sandbars.
3 days ago.
There's a lot of folks that are off work this time of year, and areas like Cockroach Bay, areas like Little Manatee River, even up in Bishop's Harbor up towards Joe's Island. A lot of times there's people sitting on the backsides of these islands sitting in those little swashers, sitting in those little ditches, and you got to be careful.
Yeah.
So
I
get on
watched
the trolling
guy
motor and look around to see where
about
you're
blow
going.
his motor up.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't get off of it.
Yeah.
He was going nowhere, and he kept her stabbed.
Yeah.
Boy.
Let her eat, boy.
Yeah, yeah. It was what was funny is we were fishing, and I had to kind of lean out. Where I was standing, I could see the spray. I kind of walked to the other end of the boat and looked out, and I could see him. And I'm like, man, he ain't even getting off that thing. And here comes these two young kids. They were probably, I don't know, they were teenagers. They come around in their little boat, and they saw it, and, man, they got the biggest kick out of it. Look at that. That guy's stuck.
Yeah.
He ran it on the bar.
Yeah, when you paid your dues and been stuck yourself, you're allowed to do that.
Well, you kids, be careful because it's going to happen to you, too.
There's a real famous spot, and it's right outside of Simmons Park. When you're coming out of Simmons and you're idling along there, you got to run, down towards Dickman's. And there's that one sandbar that sits from the channel to the beach right there. And I couldn't tell you how many boats I've seen sitting on that sandbar right there.
Oh, he didn't want to go to the marker.
Yeah, and I did. And I'm like,
sure.
I don't get it. I mean, like, it's like dirt. I'm talking about there's 30 feet from their boat to the channel, and you wonder,
Yeah.
You can see that it's shallow.
You wonder what's
it's like it's not. It don't look like the channel water.
Right.
It's
No, not at all. And especially this time of year, like I said, the water's really clear. You can see. So look down in front of you, idle along, troll a motor along, and get back up into these areas. I know that a lot of folks want to get back and, have heard stuff we've talked about or seen our boats and stuff like that, but kind of take your time and kind of figure out how to get back in some of these areas. And you might find a new one. A lot of times fish will get pushed out, especially on these lower tides that we've had. So if somebody runs up a main channel or a main creek or something like that, these fish are going to push out, and they'll end up sitting in these little troughs and bends, and it's not necessarily a popular spot where a lot of people go to, but you may end up finding a little honey hole,
right?
A little swash or something that
sometimes
some
you find
fish are
them by
sitting
mistake,
in.
like
Exactly. So
we
check that out.
We got a good comment here that we should probably address. It says, with some cold weather coming next week, I'm hoping the snook don't stunned like back in 2010.
Right.
2011. It was actually 2010. I remember it well. It was January 2nd.
Yep.
The evening of January 2nd, it got bad, and it stayed till January 15th. We had 13 days that the temperature never got above 50. To talk about that, Mark, I don't think, unless we may, we could maybe lose a few fish, but that's only the ones that are out of position right now. We do have some fish that are out of position, but that little front we got coming is not going to it's not going to be here long enough to do any, at least,
I kind of just heard the chatter last night on Facebook, as a matter of fact, and I looked at it, but it looks like it's going to be cool. It's going to be in the low 50s, for a couple of days. That's going to be the high point. But
and you got to figure too, some of the water temps that we look at, like you were talking about 57, and now it's 73. That's surface water temps. That's where you're getting your temperature. It's different. The whole water column's not 57.
And in that same area, and a lot of times I'll read to get a reference, I'll get a reading as I'm idling out in the morning in the marina. And I'll check it, obviously, throughout the day. But a lot of times I'll use the marina and kind of right there at Little Harbor, I'll kind of use that as my baseline. And that particular day, it was 57. And by the time we left the water in our last couple spots, we were up to like 62, 63 degrees.
Right.
Now, again, like you said, that's surface water temperature. But just that in itself, and you could progressively watch the fish start eating from 57 to 60, and you're like, oh, we're catching them now, and I go check the machine, I'm like, oh, no wonder.
67.
And to us, it's not a big deal, you know. You're like, oh, you could probably put your hand in the water and not really tell a difference, but for especially for snook, they can certainly tell. It makes a big difference on their core. I mean, that morning that I'm talking about, we had a slow morning, we caught a lot of trout, but the snook bite was really slow. We were catching snook in the river, and I was holding them. I was cradling, the smaller ones in my hand just to feel them, and they felt like they came out of my cooler.
Yeah,
they were just
cold,
so cold, man. I mean, even the bites we got were just slow.
Real light
you're like,
bites.
oh, you don't even think you got a fish on, kind of deal.
Do you guys, so something I've been tracking lately up there is, because it's still an area I'm learning. I grew up South Shore, just like you guys, but I've been, as I'm seeing these fish move around, or they're home one day, not home the next, I kind of track that temperature and note that. And I've kind of, in all my main spots I like to fish, have a number that if it's below here, I know they're not going to be there. Or if it's above here, I know they're not going to be here. You guys do kind of the same thing at all?
I'm not right now because the boat that I'm borrowed, because my boat's in the shop.
Rick doesn't have a trolling motor. Rick doesn't have bottom machine.
Okay.
I'm making it work though somehow.
He's got a T-top that I can hit with my head getting off the deck, so I know.
Over it.
So he's getting throat punched.
My boat's in Arkansas, having some warranty stuff done to it.
Okay.
But I'm in a borrowed boat that it's got the 3X trolling motor, which I just won't use it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to break down to use it.
Right.
You know. It's got a power pole that goes down but don't come up.
Oh.
It's a solenoid.
Yeah.
He's one spot wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it has no electronics, and I don't use electronics except for I do try to keep attention to the water temperature. So I got no idea. It's one of those things where I stick my hand in the live well.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It's a little bit warmer today, a little bit cooler today than it was yesterday.
Hey, Trev.
Well, you get a pool thermometer and just stick it in your live well. There you go.
Look on your machine, man. Can you tell me what the water temperature
How cold is it?
Hey, man, you got bait under your boat?
Yeah. But I've been throwing anchor, man, and it's I forgot how, or I appreciate my power pole.
Oh yeah.
Now.
Hashtag power pole, baby.
Hashtag power pole. I got a couple hashtags. That's
funny.
one of them. I don't even know what it is, but I got it.
I'll sort of expand on that a little bit, James, because you're right. I mean, like when you first, and I think some of my thinking is in you too is the redfish tournaments. You know, we were really trying to, when you start tracking schools of fish and you're trying to really figure out a pattern on fish. You're trying to figure out why they're there, when they're there, how to catch them, what to do, you know, if you can't catch them, and all those different things. Because in a tournament, it's similar to charter fishing, but it's not. You're looking for a very specific fish. You know, as charter's a little more diverse.
Yeah.
You know, I need fish, but and so where I'm going with this is you'll really kind of start noting everything around you, the surroundings. Is there bait? Is there birds? Is the grass laid over?
Right.
Even though the tide says it's going out, is it laid over?
Right.
You know, how dirty is the water? Is it murked up? Is there a lot of grass on the surface? All those little things, water temperature, they all make a difference. And when people ask me, you know, how to go out and be successful over and over and over again, those are the things that make you successful.
You just got to get all those little pieces of the puzzle.
Figuring out all those little pieces of the puzzle, and it's still not enough. Yeah. It's never enough. But it sort of leads you in the right direction. You know, a one that I get asked all the time is when you go to a spot, and you pull down, say it's a spot either A, you've never been to, or B, it's one you fish all the time. How long do you sit there and wait after not catching a fish before you leave? And it's a hard question to answer because it's like,
well, that changes daily though. Your answer will change daily,
right? And I'm constantly looking at what's around me. Yeah. I'm constantly looking at
thinking about where we're at on the tide.
We're at on the tide. When do I normally catch fish here? How do I like it? You know, this, that, and the other. Is there a lot of fish here? You know, sometimes in a tournament you're looking for a handful of fish. Charter, I got 4 guys on the boat. I'm not looking for a pair of redfish. Right. I'm looking for like 10, 15, or a shoreline that's got some peppered on it.
These
so
rods bent over.
There's several different reasons to why you may stay or reasons to why you may go. And I think as you have more and more good days, you'll start figuring out when it feels right.
Right.
You know, and kind of subconsciously that's what you're marking is you're marking, okay, I threw out 3 bats of chum here, man, and ain't one fish even moved. I don't care if there's 400 snooks sitting in front of you. You probably ought to just leave, you know. So
you said the magic words, when it feels right, or the opposite, you know, because you could fish by process elimination too.
Yeah, just keep going.
Not feeling it. You know, I've had, when I hook up with other guides or my tournament partners or whatever, you know, what tends to be the words we say is if we're feeling it, there's no words discussed. You just roll up and you kind of have that feeling. But when you roll up to a spot and you've thrown chum or you've done what you do to, you know, see if there's fish there, and you're not feeling it, you know, those words come out pretty quick, you know, so it can happen quick.
I do the 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning, yep.
Give them 2 minutes.
I say it all the time.
And like 9 times out of 10, I end up hooking a fish, man.
I know.
Well, that resets
or a big, you see a big snook boil or pop or whatever.
There's always something. When you start threatening them, they really kind of test you on that.
That's just the reset.
Yeah. Rick's got the reset. I mean, he's got all kinds of buttons down there.
I was fishing with some folks yesterday, and I gave them the 2-minute warning. And, I mean, we're already past the time limit on this trip, but, you know, it wasn't our best day. It was right after a front, and they caught redfish, they caught snook, and we were determined to get the slam for their sons. I was like, man, I'm going to this trout place. I know there's going to be trout. I've got bait. I've got shrimp, throwing everything out. Nothing. I mean, for an hour, nothing. We didn't get a single bite. I'm like, all right, folks, so let's get back. 2 minutes, 2-minute warning
Boom,
here.
boom.
Boom, boom. 2 gator trout. All right, pack it in. Let's go.
Game over.
Game over. They got their slam. So, but yeah, I know what you mean. That 2-minute warning, sometimes that'll trigger the bite.
Oh man! Or how many times have you had the motor bite?
Oh yeah.
All right, guys, reel them up. And whoom! Wait a minute.
Boom.
The best snook
You
day
know,
I
I mean,
ever had in
Turns
my
them on.
life. We called our first. We called 11. They still say 12, but it was 11 snook that were 2 of them were slot fish, and the other 9 were over slot fish. We hooked our first fish on a motor start.
The motor
Wow.
bite. The
Shut
motor
her
bite,
down.
baby.
Yeah.
Shut her down, sat right there, and it was just like someone hit a switch.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Like that motor started it, and it just went off from there. Lasted about an hour and was done.
I love it, man. I love
There's
it.
actually a captain we use in a seminar here. He's awesome redfish tournament guy who did a seminar last year. He says he'll use that. If he's fishing and knows there's fish, but he's not catching them, and he hasn't seen them, but he feels like they're there, he'll start the motor and try and bow them up, to see if they're there. So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
said he used it religiously.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, it's for sure, especially if you got a tower.
Yeah.
If you got a tower, you're up in the tower and you crank up, you can see them blow out. But
Mhm.
But it's funny how fish will sit in front of you or swim around your boat and you can't get them to bite. And this is the time of year where sometimes you can get that, where because you've got this clear water, you can see fish a pretty good ways away from your boat. How many times have you been fishing in some clear water and you throw a bunch of chummers out and you're watching these snook and you can see them, they're pretty good ways away and you're seeing them, boil at the baits and come to the baits and everything. And you can actually like almost sight fish
Right.
with live bait with these
Picking
snook.
and choosing.
And you can actually, all right, man, throw over there. And it's really cool because on our snook charters, a lot of times I'll tell people, I was like, look, if you have a bait that's close to the boat and you see a snook bust, reel up as
Reel
fast
it.
as you can,
Yeah.
Get in
throw
there.
throw it over there. And this is one of the cool times of the year where they can actually see it all take place.
Mhm.
33 rule.
Instead of just a bus, they're
I
actually
call it
seeing.
the 33 rule.
What's that?
If you can get that bait within 3 foot in 3 seconds, you
Yeah.
can catch that
Yep.
fish.
Yeah, that's
And-
a good
and-
rule.
And check it out.
Yep.
I believe it. No, that's I could see that.
Yeah.
That's about what it takes too. We had several of those today. We had a tough bite in the morning, and it has been for
Yeah.
me the last, I'd probably say, week. We had a tough bite, and I think some of it was partially the tide, and also just this overcast that we had the
We're
last
not in
the
good
last
tides right now.
the last 2 days.
No.
The tide is not moving, especially in the morning. It was delayed probably about half hour this morning when I was catching bait. But the second that sun came up, and my guys were like, hey, man, where are we going to go next? And I'll be honest with you, I went way upriver today. I went way upriver and fished my way back because there was just a lot of traffic in the river today. So I sprung out, and then I came back, and I told these guys, I said, we're going to go back and fish 2 spots that we fished this morning
Mhm.
that weren't very good. We went back, and we started
Yep.
if you could have put my power poles back in the same 2
place.
holes,
Yep.
and it was maybe 2 hours difference.
Different tide, different
And
time.
a little bit different
Mhm.
tide, a little bit that sun came up
Mhm.
on that clear water, and I knew these fish, and I didn't see them there in the morning, but I knew these fish were close.
Mhm.
And the second that sun came up and started heating that sand up, they were there, and we started catching fish. So putting all that pattern together is
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, I was thinking about something when you were talking about that you see a fish blow up. How many times have you seen a fish blow up and then all of a sudden it's just like ever riding a boat?
Right.
Boom, boom.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Feed them
sure.
the buffet.
Yeah.
That's
I haven't
good.
had it happen yet that I can remember. We may have, but have you ever had a client or 2 clients catch the same?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fish?
Happened actually.
Yeah.
It
I haven't had it
yesterday,
happen, and everybody has had it
Yeah.
happen, but I haven't.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I think what happened is he got the line and the hook just ran down the line and went to him. But yeah, they were arguing over it.
I had it,
That's
I had
all
it
it is.
happen. I've only had it happen once, and it was a slot fish. Hit. Coincidentally, it was the same 2 guys that I had the great snook day with.
Yeah.
Hit a bait and took off and went about 15 foot and hit the other one.
Yeah, where it
And
eats
we
the second
thought it
bait.
was
Yeah.
Just Pac-Man in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seen that happen.
And they brought them both in, and he was hooked. Then they were arguing whose fish is it.
Yeah.
I could see it happening, and it's especially, I would say for me, probably redfish schools is where I could
Yeah.
probably see it happening the most.
No, these are snook.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, out of all the snook bites and where they're just going nuts,
Yeah.
I haven't had one. Now I have caught a fish that we've hooked and lost And I know that because I'm probably, if you find a circle hook that's snelled on the South Shore, you catch a fish, and there's a circle hook, and it's snelled, even though it's like a 3 or 4 out circle hook. This guy.
Yeah.
And so I know that I've caught several that have broke off from the day or two before or whatever, and you'll catch him, and he's got my whole circle hook hanging out of his lip.
You ever lasso a fish?
I've lassoed several ladyfish. We do that all the time. We're known for
mackerel,
that.
I've seen it happen.
On the boat. They kind of call me King Lasso Lady.
Well, hey, we got
let's get the trivia going,
Rick. We got
Rick.
a trivia question here, and we're giving away, or we're not, the Tampa Fishing Outfitters is giving away a couple of these sabiki rigs for catching bait here. You see those, but if you've never used them, they're excellent for tarpon because you can keep your big threadies from dying.
Yeah.
But they're good for anything. If you don't have a cast net, and I'll say this.
Greenbacks will eat them just fine.
If you got kids on the boat, they'll have more fun catching bait than they will catching regular fish. But anyway, that's the prize for the trivia question. And the trivia question is, what's the most expensive lure ever made? We want to know the sale price of that lure.
Okay.
So
I've got no idea.
Most expensive.
So I hope you know.
Most expensive. And what do we want to know? We want to know
the price of it. How much that lure
How much
cost.
did the lure cost? And what was it made out of? Well, we'll tell them what it's made out of. They just got to get the price. It's pretty nuts.
Let me see here. Well, I'll just tell you this. It's got 3 pounds of glimmering gold and platinum encrusted with 100 carats of diamonds and rubies.
Can I ask a hypothetical question?
50 Cent fished. If 50 Cent fished, he would have a whole tackle box full of
And
these.
it was...
Are we doing Prices Right rules on this, or because this could be tough?
This is this lure was actually used on a fishing trip too. I mean, it wasn't one of those that somebody just made as a novelty to stick up. It was used, and it was insured at Lloyd's of London.
Well, get the Google going.
So yeah,
That's pretty gnarly.
yeah,
Google it up, bro.
Google on.
Google up.
I couldn't. My Google's broke, but have at it.
I tell you something else too, and I want to talk just for a second. I'm gonna ask James because we got him here, and I'm gonna have him put his TFO hat on. But one thing, if you're gonna sabiki baits, I want to give you something. If you're gonna be the guy that sabikis baits, get a D-hook tool.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna. I mean, you can grab all your baits and take the hooks out and all that jazz, but you're kind of defeating the purpose of using a sabiki. You want to make sure you get they've got several different types of D-hook tools. I like the little small one for the baits, and you can D-hook all those baits, especially tarpon fishing. I know Jim Lemke is a big advocate for, especially his threadies when he's tarpon fishing, to sabiki them, D-hook them, especially if you're going to be using those baits for live bait. But get a D-hook tool if you're going to be a sabiki guy. And speaking of that, I'm
just giggling at David Stella's answer. $65,342. You got to give us the cents.
You can't round up, Dave. You can't round up, bro.
$342.
Can't round up.
That's awesome. We got a winner already. Wow. Clara Michael Goidas, $1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million.
Yeah.
That's Sierra. That's Sierra, by the way.
Let me read the rest of it. Let me read the rest of this. It says, according to Sport Fishing Magazine, the lure's owner insured it through Lloyd's of London and actually trolled it behind a boat inside the Bay of Cabo San Lucas using a 130-pound test mono and 500-pound steel leader. Fortunately for him, perhaps the sparkly bait did not draw any strikes.
God, I don't know if that would be a gift or like good or bad. Like, how do you feel when like a CUDA comes up and grabs your $1 million lure?
Well, you got to think somebody's been leading one hell of a life to be at the point where they say, you know
absolutely.
what, $1 million lure, let's do it.
Just throw just throw some diamonds on that thing, man.
And it says, I said 100 carats of diamonds and rubies. It says 4,753 stones to be exact.
Unreal.
I'd like to have a picture of that. I really would.
Yeah.
Just see what it looked like.
How would you like to be the guy that just is the guy that ties the knots
not
on
tying that knot
and then chuck it over?
I already spooling down there. Somebody's like, I want a 130-pound top shot. I'm like, oh man, this guy's got a lot riding on this knot.
This guy's got a set of cojones.
Shoot,
man.
$1 million lure, forget it.
Sierra, swing by TFO and pick you up a couple packs of sabikis, and like I said, get you a little D-hook tool too.
Yeah, if you need any help understanding it, we can help you out here too.
Yep. And real quick, just go over it real quick, because a lot of folks probably don't know how to actually use a sabiki rig.
Well, I mean, you're going to need a weight at the bottom. That's what's going to keep it taut. You know,
Yep.
you want to be taut. If this thing loses its tension, it's going to be a tangled mess.
It
So,
is.
you know, it's one of those. We sell the weights here. They're clip-on. It's easy. It's actually a lot easier than you'd think. And you're really just dropping it into the school of bait or casting it to the school of bait, and you can do it. You can do it several ways. You can reel it back in. You can pop it up and down. You can let it sit on the bottom on itself. You could tip it with squid. There's really no wrong way to use it. So I mean, it just depends on the environment. How deep is the water? How fast is it moving? What species of bait am I looking for?
The biggest issue with those for me, I think, is what to do with it when you're done.
Yeah, throw it away.
Well, basically, actually, yeah, just
they're
throw it away.
$1.50. Yeah,
But they do make sabiki rods.
Yep.
That
they close into themselves.
Right. You reel all that in, and it all reels into the inner part of the rod, and the weight sticks on the end, and it's ready for use the next time.
Captain John Rivers here, who works here, taught me. I took him out tarpon fishing for his first time ever in our bay this year. You know, he's new to the area, and I'm getting done with the sabiki. He's like, "Man, we could just throw the net on these thread fins." I'm like, "No, we got to keep them clean." You know, so we're using the sabiki. We're done. We get it, and he says, "All right, what do I do?" Or
You just reach in and grab
so
them.
I'm like, "All right, we're done." I cut him off, and I throw the first one. I wrap it in a plastic bag and throw it in the cooler for trash. Like, what are you doing? I said, "I'm throwing it away." He goes, "No, man, you don't throw those away." And I had some noodles, you know, the little pool floating noodles. Wrap it in it. So if you're going to keep sabikis around all the time, and you don't have a sabiki rod or want to spend that money, a pool noodle, you know, like this long or so, 12, 18 inches, keep it on board. Just take the sabiki, wrap it around, you're good to go. You keep on, you know, I probably use the same sabiki for a month. So that's one way.
I do something similar with my mackerel rigs every now and again. Like when we mackerel fish in the summer, I'll make like I don't know, 8 or 10 of them up with like a little short leader on them, like 40-pound, and I'll have the long shank hooks, and I'll do something similar. I'll have like a little piece of foam and just take them, and that way, because when you're mackerel fishing, a lot of times it's like boom, 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 you know, and so it's nice to have it kind of available, ready to go. You know what I mean?
And not tangled.
And not,
in a tangled mess.
Tangled, yeah. I have seen them where a lot of guys will take the sabiki, and one way to store them is to like hook to hook, depending on the length of the sabiki on it. And I know my buddy down in Key West, a lot of times they'll make their own because they do some fancy stuff with it. They actually don't like that many hooks.
Right. 2 or 3.
They'll only use like 4.
Yep.
But they like sabiki and threadies down there too.
Yep.
And it's always cool, like especially if like sabiki at the bridge, you'll get like loaded up, have 3 or 4 or 5 on there, and then all of a sudden like one of those bonitas
comes
or
in,
like a big a big mackerel or something come by and just shred the bait. It's pretty awesome.
We've actually got people who come in. So we sell sabikis bigger than you'd ever think they'd be. Like you can't, to the point you can't call it a sabiki anymore. And that's what they do out there at the bridges or the piers is they'll bonita
they're
fish.
Trying to catch.
Yeah, they're trying to use that, but the feathers or the fish foil or whatever comes off is this size of a bait we'd be catching.
So they're trying to catch 7 mackerel at a time.
Use them on mackerel, bonita, all that. Yep.
Let
crazy.
it rip. Let it rip, Tater Chip. I've been doing it all wrong. I'm gonna umbrella rig. I'm gonna umbrella rig those mackerel this year.
Get the Alabama rig out.
But yeah, I mean the application you're going to catch tarpon, or I mean you're going to catch your threadies, you know, for bait is if you're going to use the thread fins, you want them to stay alive all day.
Yeah.
Their survival rate is night and day compared to a cast net. You know,
I agree.
tearing them up. You're going to get some that are going to be alive, but probably more than you need, and they're not going to last as long as you need them. So, really the last 2 years, I'm a converted sabikiist.
I agree, man. I agree.
A lot of the hardcore tarpon guys, really, they want good lively baits.
I like it. I mean, a lot of times I tarpon fish a lot from the bridge in, and I prefer honestly a big greenback, a big pilcher,
hardy one,
over a thready. Now there are days when the threadies will sort of outperform the big greenbacks, but it just so happens that where I'm at in the bay and where I'm fishing, that time of year those big greenbacks are prevalent.
That's probably what they're seeing more.
Yeah.
And what I net them obviously, but I actually tarpon fish a lot of times like you would snook fish, live chum.
Really?
I mean like the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And part of it is because in those areas that I'm fishing some of the time, you could sort of concentrate on the tarp, like they're in an area. Whereas like say out by the bridge or out Bean Point, they're sort of the school's sort of moving around, you know. And
they're
so,
not pinned down.
Right, they're not. It's harder to target them in one specific place. But when they get in some of these channels and some of these bins, they sort of sit there, and so you can get them fired up. But but definitely, it's not a bad way to go, especially if you can't throw a cast net. And not necessarily that you can't throw a cast net, but sometimes the current's ripping so bad, and if you only need a couple dozen baits, if you're just going to go single bait fish, that's the way to go sometimes. Instead of ruining
throwing the net versus
$250 net to get a dozen baits,
Right.
and it's definitely a way to go.
Another good question.
So, hey guys, best bait for triple tail? I'm gonna say shrimp, man.
Yeah.
But they'll eat just about anything.
Yeah, I'll take a small. I'll take a small white bait, and then I've fishing those fish in the Upper Bay. I've seen them eat some massive threadfins. I mean, blows my mind.
Well, and some of those triple tail.
Yeah, but I mean, still,
cannons,
where you're almost thinking, man,
exactly.
it's too big for a big redfish or anything. But yeah, I'd say shrimp one, closely followed by a small greenback. Crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets or earthworms.
I like oysters. I like
I'm
mushrooms.
James looking at me like I'm serious.
Yeah,
I'm kidding, James.
Yeah. Do I need to start stocking those here
I'm joking
for you?
about the crickets.
Frozen crickets.
Yeah, frozen crickets and super mushrooms. But what about mullet for tarpon? I'm a big fan of mullet for tarpon. Now, live or dead, a lot of my clients that fish with me, they know that I'm a cut bait guy. I love fishing cut bait for tarpon. And so cut mullet is one that you can get pretty prevalent. A lot of the mullet guys, sometimes I'll go out and I'll catch them myself, net them up. But honestly, I'd rather just pass it along and pay the mullet guys. I got some buddies that mullet fish, and so I'll put in an order for a dozen or two mullet. Yeah. They'll pick them up for me or get them for me, and I'll just keep them on ice and rotate through my tarpon trips. I don't generally chum with my mullet. That's normally my bait. And then I'll net threadies or I'll net pilchards or whatever for chumming. But those are normally my cut baits.
Anything eats a cut mullet, though.
Anything. Dude, mullet is the circle of life.
It is.
I mean, from finger mullet all the way to stud, 5-6 pound mullet, the mullet run and everything. It is definitely not mullet hashtag mullet life. I mean, you do not want to be a mullet.
No.
It's not a good thing.
No.
Eventually, if Steve Fagan doesn't get a hold of you and put you on the smoker, 200-pound tarpon's probably going to eat you. Like, what shot do you have?
Yeah, it's not good.
God bless the mullet.
You're not in.
And if the tarpon don't, the dolphins will.
The dolphins will. Speaking of which, man, you brought up a really good topic. I know we've got quite a few listeners. I want to talk a little bit about dolphins and eating fish from your boat. Because this time of year, we all get bottlenecked up. We fish a lot of places. These porpoises move in. And I've had several, over the years, fish get eaten by these porpoise. And I want to know if anybody's figured anything out. Now, I'm talking humane, is there a thing?
I'm going to tell you what I do. And I probably shouldn't be saying this with people listening. And this is totally illegal. But I think it's totally ethical. I fill up my other live well, and every one of those little peanut snook I catch, I throw them in that live well until I'm done fishing that spot. And then I roll in there and I put them under the bushes.
There you go.
Power pole down and put them under the bushes. If the man catches me, I'm just going to have to plead my case and hope he's understanding. But the thing is, yes, it's totally illegal, and if I get caught, I understand. But I think it's totally ethical.
Yeah.
Because I've sat there and fed them before. Yeah. And you throw these snook. I mean, and there's one spot down on our shore that I'm telling you, there's a mama raised her baby there.
When you pull in, they come in behind you. They come in behind you.
Yeah. She will sit there and wait. They'll watch you bring a fish to the boat and I mean, literally sit right there with one eye looking at you.
Roll over.
Yeah.
But waiting for you to drop it in. And I'm like, I fed a couple to them. I said, I'm not. Because I tried to throw lead at them, not actually to hit them, but if you throw lead in their direction, and it hits, they'll kind of – these won't. They'll go out and come right back.
They're waiting.
And I just kind of got tired of feeding them snook, and I'm like, I'm not going to go have less of a bite for my clients because this may be the best spot I have going at the time or whatever because of these dolphins. They don't have a fishing license. I got one.
Right.
I paid the state.
So
I'm going to stick them right here.
Yeah.
And when I get done, I'm going to take them up there and dump them. And if the man says something, he says something. I'm just, hopefully he understands that. I mean, I ain't never broke a rule out there ever. So, I mean, got a good spotless record. But, Yes.
Yeah.
If he wants to give me a ticket, watch me long enough there, and you can give me one. But you can also watch me and see me turn them loose.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's just an interesting thing, and we've talked about it a lot
Well, it's
over the years,
because
and it's
she's
very
raised
aggravating.
this baby
and
dolphin to eat there.
Yeah.
That's the way she raises.
It happens. They're
little
smart.
baby
Man.
to-
They are
it's
smart.
and what we were talking about, and sort of is that they are literally every year like we're patterning fish. They're kind of patterning what they're doing.
Right.
Not only the dolphins, but the terns.
Yeah.
The terns and the seagulls are like insane. Like they're all starting to figure it all out. Like how many times? Like literally in Cockroach Bay, there was a day where we had to just leave. I was like, look, man, let's just go over there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're gonna go in the trees over there and they won't follow. But they were literally like following our boat the whole time, and you couldn't get a bait in the water. We were fishing in some really shallow water, which was like, I mean, you know, 1.5 foot of water that's crystal clear on a sand flat.
Yeah.
Dude, they're just dive bombing your bait.
Yeah.
You can see fish underneath them trying to get them, and they're just crushing them. So that whole chumming thing, really, you got to tone it down when you get that clear water and you get a lot of fish out there. But the dolphins have really just been, and it seems like every year they get a little worse. And I had one about a month ago that we caught a slot snook. And Nate, if you're watching, you'll know this story, but that snook you caught, it was like a 32-inch snook. He didn't want to eat it. It was in snook season. He said, man, let's let it go. We went up, and I said, well, let's release it by the island. Don't throw it out the back of the boat where the dolphin's at. Let's slide up. We'll let her go off the shoreline and hope that she takes off and knows what to do.
But,
Well,
you know, the fish is exhausted.
Well, that fish, we put her, I mean, like, you couldn't have put her any closer to the island. She noses off, and I go, you don't want to, and about that time, dude, here he comes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was like a missile. And I'm thinking, no, that's probably a little bit big. Dude, she grabbed that snook and flipped it in the air like it was like a 2-pound mullet, ripped it in half, spun around, and we could see the carcass floating. I go, well, we might be able to get her, man. You know, so I, like, go to get the trolling motor and go over there, and it was like Jaws.
Yeah. Wham.
She comes back and crushes it again, you know.
Yep.
Well, Brooksy had two
it
dolphins.
sucks, but it's part of it.
He caught I think he said it was a 42-inch snook. Took pictures of it, released it, and he said he had 2 of them. One grabbed it this way, one grabbed it that way,
tug of war.
and they just pulled it apart.
Yep. And it's amazing how
42-inch snook.
they can do it. Captain Charlie Phillips says, on my offshore structures I fish down here, the sharks and the Goliath grouper do the same thing as your dolphin. They take up station under the boat and wait for us to bring the food to them.
Sure.
And it is, man. And it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. I think the first time where it really started affecting me, where I noticed it, was snapper fishing years ago at the Skyway Bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, the mangrove snapper fishing at the bridge is really good, but it seems like I used to fish it. I'd say this is going back 8-9 years ago. We used to fish it quite a bit in the summer during the snapper spawn. I haven't been to that bridge in probably 5 years to snapper fish because I know you're going to get like 2 or 3 of them up, and then it's just, you know,
It's the race.
game on from
time.
there on out. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but something
Well,
you got to deal with. So I want to bring that up. If anybody had any things that they did, I mean, we always try to release them towards the shore if we can, but outside of that, it's sort of in, you know, the hands of the fish guys.
If that dolphin's there and he wants it, you just got a fish that's, you know, he's fought for his life to get away from you.
Right.
He's wore out, and you release him, he's dead.
There's
if that
not a whole
dolphin
lot.
wants him, he's got him.
Yeah,
but personally, my first experience with dolphin was years ago at Potter's Pier.
Oh, net.
Yeah, with
Bait
the
net.
nets.
Bait nets, yeah.
Totally different situation, but those dolphins there became, for y'all here, is great.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all selling a lot of nets.
Yeah.
But they'll eat your net.
Yep.
I had a net I kept on the boat just for Potter's Pier.
Right.
He'd get like 6 baits at a time because
sure.
the whole school found that giant hole in it.
Well, what the dolphins were doing is you would throw the net and you start pursing it in and bringing the net in, and they would just come up. Sometimes 2 of them would grab it at the same time, and they just grabbed it. You'd feel it was almost like you had something digging it like that, and next thing you know, you got a frisbee-sized hole in the net.
Yep.
How bad are the porpoise up in Upper Tampa Bay?
So you know they can be bad. I haven't had, you know, I'm all sitting here thinking, and I'm like, well, when's the last time? I remember it vividly. It wasn't long ago. It was actually had to run a trip out of downtown, and I came out and fished around Pendola and it was awful. I mean, we were catching snook, and there was dolphins everywhere. I was like, guys, we can't keep doing this. I've got other places we can go
Right.
fish. But it was awful. But really, outside of that time, I can't remember.
Not so bad.
Not so bad. But, you know, we're also fishing really shallow water up there. You know, I know they're there. I see them. But I don't see them encroaching on my fishing as much as I have in the South Shore or like when I fished kind of out near Fort DeSoto. So, yeah, I'm trying to think about it and, you know, give you a tactic. But what you said is I usually try to keep my boat between us and try to keep that shallow end, you know, where I'm going to release them to, and also revive them as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, you put them in the live well. I've done it too where I've got a bigger fish.
You
I'll
can't
put it in the live well.
these where I'm
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
I think they might come take them out of your hand. I honestly do.
Really,
I
yeah.
do
So you're
not-
dealing with a whole nother breed.
These
You're talking about the same area there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've got some places there, though, when you get in the deeper water, they can be bad, kind of just similar to anywhere. But, you know, when you start getting further north, I see them all the time. But they, like I said, they just don't encroach on the fishing as much as I've seen other places. So.
Yeah. When they get trained, there's another spot, and we'll get off the topic here in a second, but there's another spot that any of our listeners down south, and that's Stump Pass. It's like horrible for porpoise. We used to snook fish down there quite a bit at night, you know, fishing the pass and docks and stuff.
Yeah.
And there were several times that we would have fish on, and they never really attacked them, but they were like waiting.
Yeah.
They're around them. Now, my cousin, Josh, and he can attest to this, they were in the pass hooking them with giant pinfish. They were tarpon fishing one night, and they were, you know, had hand-sized pinfish.
Yeah.
They started hooking these porpoise.
Yeah.
And they could never stop one.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
they'll run off all your line.
they loved it. It was
I
great.
hooked one at the Skyway. Only one
Yeah.
I've ever hooked at the Skyway. He came straight to the boat.
Reeled him in?
No. Well, I did, but I mean, I didn't have to. I'm reeling, or
It was probably
the client's reeling.
They go, get this out, man.
He literally
Hey,
came
roll over,
right
get
up
this
next
out
to
of
the
me.
boat and looked at us like, cut this, dude. I got
Come on,
places
bro.
to go. You're
got fish to
you're
eat,
slowing me
homie.
down. It's crazy.
So take that topic and spin and, you know, turn it a little bit. So what about when you're fishing and maybe the dolphin aren't as aggressive eating your fish, but when do you start to worry about them slowing down the bite that you might be on, or you know, or you see a dolphin come and destroy something on a flat?
They'll
You know, what's your take on that? Because I mean, I've had people that say, well, at least we're in the right spot. You know, there's fish here, or they're done now. You know, we might as well go. What are your feelings on when a dolphin shuts you down?
Well, my experience is if you're catching fish and then that dolphin makes his presence, usually you'll know you're done. You'll know because you just caught, you know, 14 fish in the last hour or whatever, and the next 20 minutes you don't get a bite.
Right.
I'll say, and they're going to mess with me, but it depends. It depends on where I'm fishing.
It does.
Because if I'm fishing an open flat, like let's say I'm fishing a school
slide
redfish,
down, or
I'll tell you one specific example is Weeden Island.
Well, that's
and I've
true
had
because
porpoise.
they're used to seeing dolphins travel.
Right,
through.
and I've had the school redfish at Weeden Island, and you know, either myself or a couple boats or whatever, and a dolphin come in and just completely murder the situation. Just run through there. There's redfish jumping out of the water. You know, 2 or 3 of them come in. They're eating redfish. I mean, it's just chaos. And those fish are done for until they settle back down and kind of group back up, and they're just going to swim around. Now they're spooked.
Yeah.
Snook, I would say, isn't quite as bad, partially because I think snook are a little bit more smarter when they school, that they'll school in the bushes. They're going to get away from that. They're going to get away from those
in the shadow,
porpoise
under
as
the
much as they
tree.
can. Now, I have seen several times where on a deep shoreline, say 4, 5, 6 foot, porpoise come in and just crush the shoreline. You know, run right down the trough in the mangroves. But more often than not, you don't see that. You see them in the wide open.
Yeah.
So trout, redfish, I'd say fishing flats. There's an area in Cockroach Bay that we fish quite a bit, and you know that when the porpoise are there, I'll literally pull in, and there's a specific area, and it's a little open bay, and if you see a porpoise swimming in a circle, you got a 50-50 shot on if you're going to catch anything in there. I don't know what it is, but and you know what I'm talking about.
Well,
if you get in there, those fish just get wigged out because they can only get in there on a higher tide, and then it drops out and there's a bowl, and that's when we like fishing it.
Yep.
Well, the porpoise know it too, and I don't even think the porpoise can get out.
Right.
So those fish are sitting in that bowl, and here's Mr. Porpoise just going, yeah, come on out. And a lot of times we'll fish it when the water's coming in. Well, the fish start pouring out of the hole. Well, guess what happens?
Yeah,
Poly porpoise is just crushing them the whole time. You know, so.
Well, it's like the elbow at Bishop's Harbor. Got a group down there here a while back, and we're fishing, and we're not lighting them up, but we're catching fish. and I don't remember, it was 3 or 4 porpoises just come in, and they were on the hunt. I mean, you could just tell the way they were acting. They weren't just like doing their merry little way thing.
Right.
They were, across and trying to. Dude, it
Who's
went
bad.
It was done. It was they went through. I don't know if they ever got any.
Yeah.
But it pushed every fish so far up under the mangroves that they wasn't coming out no time soon.
That's the
The
truth.
tide was going to bring those fish out because they weren't coming out on their own.
And I think you said it too, James. I mean, a lot of the philosophy behind it is you hope you have enough water to where if there's a porpoise in the area to put your boat between where the porpoise wants to sort of sit and where the fish are actually at.
Yeah.
And sort of create a barrier so that those fish and it's crazy, but they'll sort of feel protected. You'll notice that you won't really catch any fish out past your boat, but they'll sort of come out and get chummed up to your boat. So, but I just thought it was an interesting topic because over the last, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks, man, there's been several spots where I know that we've been sort of feeding porpoise, but there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, there's really nothing you can do about it. You catch a few and you sort of bounce around. But the sad thing is I know when my power poles lift up and I go, it probably won't be another half hour and somebody else will pull right back in there and start doing it again. But anyway,
true.
So what's next, boys?
What you got planned this week?
I've got another trip Friday, Saturday. So I'll be doing that right before this cold front comes through, and then next
cold
week.
Front coming on Monday?
Cold front's supposed to come Monday. I was going to go to the Outback Bowl and watch Michigan play, but not going to do that with my old lady. It's going to be cold and rainy. Stay home, drink beer, barbecue. That's a good team right there.
That's his team.
Yeah, that's my team.
If there's one thing I know about James, I know that's his team. It's
Michigan,
like Detroit Lions and Michigan.
You from there?
Yeah, I was born there, but I'm not. I mean, I've been here since '86, so I mean, I can't tell you a thing about it. But you know what I was planning on doing? There's some super negative tides next week. I think I marked it next week in the Upper Bay, -1.1, with a strong north wind coming out.
Ooh,
so
low.
I've got some new waders. I think I'm going to go give it a shot. But if anything, I'm gonna spend time. We in seminars we've talked about this here at the shop that during this time of year, if you're not accustomed to fishing an area, don't avoid the negative tide. As long as you can safely get your boat in and out the water.
Time to learn.
Go learn it. Go out there and do your recon, and don't worry about getting on the flat or getting to fish. I'll even say leave your rods at home.
Yeah, don't even worry
trolling
about
motor and
fishing.
idle. That's all you need. And go learn a flat. You can learn so much, and that's made me in the Upper Bay.
You see all those little highways that you don't see on high water.
Yep, and and it's paid huge dividends. And we've had people that have frequent the shop that I've given that advice to that have come back and they're like, "You're absolutely right." So next week's a good day to do it. You've got nasty cold weather, which could shut them down, and you've got some negative tides. You can learn a lot then. So I'm gonna do that.
I tell you too, and I've sort of done this over the years. And Mark's got a good question here. We'll answer in 1 second. But when you get around and you wade in some of these colder days, these negative tides, you're going to get two things, especially if you get a little sunlight, which is always nice. That clear water, you're going to be able to see, a lot. You're going to be able to see some really cool stuff. When the water's really cold, you might not catch a lot of fish, but you're going to see them because they're not going to move like they would if you're wading on a flat and it's hot, or in the summertime or spring or whatever when they're real active. But there's been several times, man, where I've been wading, and I like to wade. If I'm going to wade an area, I like to get in the bushes, and I'll kind of wade along the bushes, especially on a negative tide, and sort of work my way out, sort of find where that trough is, where those fish want to be. And a lot of times I'm walking, and like redfish are swimming right by you. They're creeping by,
Oh, yeah.
Now, you may have thrown in there 4 times or 5 times and didn't get anything to strike. But they're not going to quite dart off like they would because they don't have –
well, they don't eat every day, all day, for sure. We know that.
So it's definitely – and I preach it all the time, James. Like, now's the time to go out and find a new spring spot.
Yeah.
Find that new trough. Find that new belly. Find that new area that looks good that you couldn't see or you won't see in about 4 months.
Don't you love the people that you get, though, that think just because the fish is there and you put a bait in front of him, he should eat it?
Right.
He's going to eat it.
Yeah.
He's going to eat it.
Not going to happen. So we got a question here. We got a few more minutes. Mark Garwood asks, when would you say fishing the docks and bridge in the Manatee River should pick up, and how to go about it? Well, I can't speak a whole lot. I'll pass the Manatee off to Rick because I know Rick's got a lot of time in the Manatee River. But I will say that the Little Manatee River, is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's the best that it's probably going to be, in the next month or two.
Those fish in the Manatee River, and I haven't been down there recently, but they ought to be going off right now.
I would say that it should be parallel.
Yeah.
I mean, sort of most of these rivers. I'd say
They
the
should
Alafai,
be-
I'd say Little Manatee, I'd say Palm River, I'd say Hillsborough River.
They should be eating all the way up to the Green Bridge pretty good.
They should be about the same. I know that the snook, which is probably one of the easiest things to tell where fish are at. In other words, this point you caught 40 snook or 30, and then you kind of work your way up the river and find out how far they go and sort of work your way out. And I would say that most of our fish are from the mouth of the river to halfway up the fishing zone. They're not quite all the way up the river yet. Because I fished today up to 75 bridge in the Little Manatee River.
Wow.
Now we caught fish, but the fishing was actually better towards the mouth of the river than it was all the way up the river. So to give you an idea, I think it'll take maybe this week.
Yeah.
It may drive some fish
It'll move them.
Money's
up
gonna
that
move 'em.
way.
The tide will force them too.
Money's
The
gonna
tide.
So I would say that in the next 2 weeks, that river is, if it's good now, or if you've got areas that you've fished in the last
it should be good
years
right now.
are good, then I would go to that. Focus on points, focus on deep water shorelines, or focus on the edges of channels or drop-offs in the river. On the morning time, especially with these lower tides, these fish are going to be in the middle. Like I've had guys, and I don't know, you've had it too, the river was real low, real shallow, and all these areas are real shallow, and you're pulling in there, and the folks are so used to casting under the bushes, snooker in the mangrove.
Yeah.
Snooker in the mangrove. I'm going, look, man, it's 6 inches up there.
Yeah.
Throw right out there.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
It seems like I should be throwing over there. And so don't be afraid to fish in the middle of the channels or the edges of the channels this time of year.
For sure.
Because a lot of times the quantity of fish
Yeah.
will be kind of out in the middle of no man's land.
Especially first thing like that.
What-
first thing in the morning.
What
So-
Mark needs to do, Mark, you need to find Jason Ramsey or TJ Stewart and just see which side of the boat they want you to pull up next
on.
to
Yeah.
and make it happen.
Get down current. Get down current
Get
of
in
the
there,
chum.
get in this
Get
chum
down
line.
current of the chum. You'll be all right. Wind at your back, down current of the chum. You're good to go, man. You're good to go.
Oh, awesome.
Well, guys, we got a couple more minutes here. If anybody's got a last-minute question, let us know. Other than that, if you guys want to go fishing with us, we are all three up here, fishing charter captains in the Tampa Bay area. You can get a hold of me at 813-830-3474. That's Captain Travis, from my website at www.fishbyinstinct.com. I also want to cover my man, Jason Prieto. You can give him a call also. That's steadyactionfishingcharters.com. 813-727-9890.
Man, that's awesome.
You had it
know
memorized.
You know
All
a
right.
number by heart.
See that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
See that?
I would have liked to see him put it on you though, Rick. Say, can you give him his contact?
Yeah,
number?
and Rick's gonna do the phone.
That'd be great.
Well, I'm at 813-601-2900, and I do not have a website no more, so you can't find me there. You got to call me.
All right.
Got to call him.
Oh, yeah.
We got to do that personal thing.
You got to feel him out. There.
How about you, bub?
So Captain James Beers, 813-625-2067. That's my cell. The website is localknowledgefishing.com. And, be happy to get with you and take you out.
Absolutely. There's a lot of great choices to fish in Tampa Bay. If you choose a guide, get a hold of one of us. We can, if we're booked, we'll put you with one of the better guys that we know, and make sure you have a good day on the water. So, guys, until next week, we're
Hope
about
everyone had
out
a
of
good
time.
Christmas and
Have a happy New Year. I think we'll miss the New Year. So
see y'all next year.
we'll see y'all next year, guys.
Cool. We'll see you.
We appreciate you watching.